Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming in the rain, also known as liquid sunshine. I am smiling more than most people because this panel represents my friends and family. And for the first time, I get to run the show. With that being said, we'll jump right into it. Professor Don Taylor, it's been 7 months since the death of Keith Lamont Scott and the ensuing riots in Charlotte. Based on your perspective, what have we learned and what should we teach our students now?
Well, one of the things I think we've learned out of this, Ben, is we have to have more civil discourse. Frequently what happens is people get angry, folks get focused on their perspective on how something is or how something should be, and as a result of that, it's very difficult for them to see the other perspective. When that happens, folks begin to find ways of pointing fingers and blaming. So I'm saying that one of the things that's most important for our students is to have folks feel safe to talk about points of view which may or may not agree with the dominant ideology.
Mr. Jones, this one's for you. Baby boomers believe discrimination was highest with their childhoods and growing up. However, millennials, we say that although we no longer have the discriminatory laws, the societal standards are far worse than ever. Where do you stand on this issue?
I actually agree with that. What I perceive to be a bit of a backlash on the progress that's been made over the last 30 years or so. And I remember when President Obama was elected, we all of a sudden declared that we were in a post-racial society, right? Now we can rest and we don't have to worry about all of these race things anymore. We're all even. But it turns out the election of Barack Obama was all of the stuff that was boiling under the surface in terms of how people were feeling about race and other issues and gender. And all of a sudden it gave you this picture of what you're dealing with. But one of the issues with that coming out was it felt like it gave permission for certain things to take place. And I think what millennials feel right now is some of that backlash.
Greg talks about the system and systems impeding progress. Is that a global issue from your perspective?
I would have to answer that yes. It's very much a global issue. I think many of us in this room are aware of the disparity of wealth on our planet, where 1% of us, wherever we might come from, the United States, Europe, Africa, it really doesn't matter. Pick your spot. The story is the same. Approximately 1% of each of the populations controls 50% of the wealth. And I ask you about this particular issue, where is the ethical justification for that? It's not in the Bible, it's not in the Quran, and it's not in the Upanishads or the Vedas, it's in greed. It's the structural defects of capitalism that permit people like that to accrue such massive wealth.
By looking globally, we might be myopic to what is happening right here at home. We are a democratic republic. Many of our problems lie in Washington, D.C. If we the people, if we are a government of the people, for the people, by the people, then we the people, if we were voting, if we were calling our legislatures to order, if we were putting the pressure on them, then many of our problems could be solved.
Is it harder for women of color or men of color? I think it's splitting hairs. So I think having worked for many years in human resources, having been in the room when you are having succession planning conversations and seeing continually how there is a different standard for non-white males, and having been in the room forcing leaders to take ownership, I can't say to you that one has it easier or harder than the other.
2016, 51,000 partners in law firms, in the top 1,000 law firms across America. 326 black women in the entire United States. There were only 920 black lawyers, period, out of 51,000. If you took the definition of diversity and you changed it, and you say the definition of diversity is about the transfer of power and wealth, If you look at it in that simplistic terms, it's real easy to understand why we don't have diversity. No one's going to give up power and wealth without a struggle. Now think of the country as a corporation. Imagine going through that change and never having diversity training.